Hi there matriculants and welcome back to NTE. In today's video I want to look at these two different but similar problems, right? So these two problems are taken from past exam papers, right? And they deal with ordinary annuities, right? Where we have missed payments. Okay, so the one on your left hand side has been taken from the May-June 2019 past paper. Okay, and then the one on your right hand side is taken from the Eastern Cape province, right? And this was their September 2019 past paper. Okay, so these two questions obviously fall into the section of financial math, right? So we're going to dive into the two questions, and then at the end we're going to talk about what was the subtle difference between these two questions. Okay. Right, so before we begin, you see the title of this, right? It says ordinary annuities, right? If you're wondering what is an ordinary annuity, okay, it's the annuities that we deal with in grade 12, right? If you want a formal definition of that, an ordinary annuity, right, is basically an annuity where payments are made at the end, right, of the interval, okay? So in this case, we're going to be looking at somebody paying off a loan, right? And they're going to be doing those payments every single month, right? So in ordinary annuities, whereby those payments are received at the end of the month. Okay. Another thing about an ordinary annuity is that the frequency of the payments, right, is the same as the frequency of your compounding interest. Okay, so that just means that if you are making payments monthly, right, then you are also earning interest, right, compounded monthly, right? So those two things go hand in hand. Okay, so with that said, we're just going to start with the first one, okay? And we'll start off with the one on the left hand side. Okay, so this is from question 6.2, right, from May-June 2019. Okay, let's get started. Right, so in this question, we have a lady called Jane, right? And we're told that exactly 10 months ago, right, a bank granted Jane a loan, right, of this amount. Okay, so she was granted a loan of 800,000 Rand. Let's just highlight that. Okay, this loan was granted at an interest rate of 10.25% compounded monthly. Okay, and it also says that the bank stipulated that the loan must be repaid over 20 years. Okay, and must be repaid by means of monthly repayments of 7,853.15. Okay, and there is this lovely statement over here, starting 1 month after the loan was granted. Okay, so question 6.2.1, we have to calculate how much is Jane owing, okay, immediately after making her sixth repayment. Okay, so this part over here, we can simply say is just testing us on the balance on the loan. Then on the next question, right, we're told that unfortunately due to some financial difficulties, right, Jane missed her 7th, 8th, and 9th payments, right? She was able to start making payments at the end of the 10th month and onwards. Okay, now we need to calculate Jane's increased monthly payment, right, in order to settle the loan in the original 20 years. Okay, so this is a nice key point over here that we need to take note of. Okay, so we still want to settle this loan, okay, in 20 years. Right, so if we just quickly draw up a number line, right, for ourselves, just to visualize what is happening here with Jane's situation, okay, we know that here at T0, right, that is the start of the first month, okay, that's when she got the loan, right. At the end, right, of the first month, okay, remember that over here, this is the end of the first month, the end of the second month, right, and so on. Okay, so right over here, right, T1, okay, which is the end of the first month, she made her deposit, right, which is to repay this loan, and this amount right over here, okay? That's her monthly installment, okay? We indicate that as a value of X in our formula, so I'll just put in X over here, right? So she did that for the second month, also at the end of the third month, at the end of the fourth month, at the end of the fifth month, and at the end of the sixth month. Okay, so now 6.2.1 wants us to calculate, right, what is the balance on her loan, right, immediately after she made this sixth repayment. Okay, so what is she owing on her loan after making that repayment? Okay, then we just need to take note that after that, what happens is that here at the end of the seventh, the eighth, and the ninth month, right, she misses payments. Okay, so we have like these empty boxes over there, right, because she didn't make this monthly deposit of 7,853 and 15 cents. So then after that, right, from the 10th month onwards, okay, they tell us that she does actually resume her payments, right? But we know that now what she's doing, okay, in order to be able to cover this loan or to settle it within the agreed period of 20 years, she's now increased her monthly installments, right, or the amount that she's paying every month. So the amount that she's putting in here, right, is still an X value, but we need to calculate it. It's going to be much bigger than this one. Okay, so I'm going to say over here X2, right? Or you can call it Y or something like that. Okay, we know that that's going to carry on all the way up to the last payment, which happens at 240. This little squiggly line over here is just indicating that there is some time that passed by. Okay, so there's more payments in there as well. All right, so now that we have sort of like a general idea of what's happening with Jane's situation, and we also have the key information, right, from the given statement pulled out. Okay, I'm just going to move this to the side a little bit. Right, so now we can actually go in and calculate the balance of her loan, right, immediately after she made that sixth repayment. Okay, so this all depends on what your teacher told you. All right, you can use the method of the future value annuity, right, to calculate the balance on the loan, right. However, I am only going to stick to the present value method, right, of calculating the balance on a loan. Okay, so now with the present value method, what we do is that we need to recalculate N, right? So we know that N, okay, the number of payments for this full term is 240, okay, as noted here in the beginning, right? But now we need to recalculate N, right? And we now think of N as the number of remaining payments, right, that need to be made. Okay, so when we recalculate N, right, we're going to have that N is going to equal to the 240, okay? That's the number of payments that she's required to make, right, for this period of years. And then we're going to subtract from that the number of payments she's already made, okay? She's already made 6 payments, okay? So we have 234 remaining payments. So now we're going to use this N value, right, in order to substitute into our present value formula, okay, that remaining number of payments, right. Okay, so when we work that out in the calculator, we get that after making 6 payments of 7,853 Rand and 15 cents, right, so Jane still owes 793,749 Rand and 25 cents. Okay, so this amount over here, right, we are going to have to use it in the second question, right, because what happened is that this is what she was owing after her sixth repayment, but then after that, she missed some payments, okay? So So this balance, right, has to be charged interest, right, before she can carry on making her new repayments, right? So because we're going to need this amount over here, I'm going to store it in the calculator, right? So I'm going to go Shift, Store, A, right? And we can just check that it's there. There we go, right? Okay, so now for question 6.2.2, right, as stated, because Jane missed a few of her payments, right, then she has to be charged interest, right, on whatever the balance of the loan was, right, from where she ended off, okay? So she made her last payment, right, at the end of the 6th month, okay, which is right over here, right, if you have a look at the number line, right? So now, if you can remember to one of the basic videos of financial math that I made, right, the way that the number line works, right, is that here at the bottom, right, when you're traveling here at the bottom of these terms, right, you're talking about the end, right, of the 6th month. But at the top over here, right, you're talking about the start of the following month, right? So if this is the end of the 6th month, this is the start, okay? This line is also the start of the 7th month, okay? So why do I point this out to you? Well, I point it out because when the month starts, they charge interest for that month as well, okay? So now that we know where we're charging interest, we can now do a little bit of analysis over here, okay? So immediately after Jane made her 6th payment, right, this is the balance on her loan, right? At that same time, right, the bank now charges interest for the 7th month, right, for the following month, okay? So then the 7th month goes by, right, and at the end of the 7th month, Jane is expected to make a payment, but she doesn't do so, okay? Well, the bank carries on and it charges interest for the 8th month. Okay, the 8th month goes by. At the end of the 8th month, she is expected to make a payment, but she doesn't do so. The bank carries on again. It charges interest for the 9th month. Okay, the 9th month goes by. Right, at the end of the 9th month, Jane is expected to make a payment, but she doesn't do so. Right, so then the bank carries on and it charges interest for the 10th month, right? So by the end of the 10th month, right, when Jane actually starts making repayments, right, again, right, she finds that this amount that she's repaying now, right, has actually accumulated 1, 2, 3 months interest, okay? So she's now repaying an amount that has extra 3 months interest, okay? Okay, so into the calculator, there's the balance on her loan. We're just going to times it by 1 plus 0.1025 divided by 12, and we need 3 months of this. All right, so what she is actually repaying now is 814,263 and 30 cents. Okay, so this value over here now becomes her new loan amount. Okay, all right. So basically what we're saying now is that Jane has to settle, right, 814,263 rand and 60 cents, right, in whatever time that is remaining, because she still wants to settle this in the original 20 years. Okay, so now that brings us to calculating a new value of n. Okay, and this new value of n is still going to go into the present value formula because this is still a loan, right, that she needs to pay off. Okay, so we figured out that after making her 6th payment, right, she was left with 234 payments remaining. Okay, now she missed 3 of those required payments. So from these remaining payments, right, she still missed a further 3, right? So which means that our new n value is now going to be 231, okay, payments which are required if she still wants to settle this loan in 20 years. Okay. So now calculating this increased monthly installments, right, is just going to be a matter of dividing this PV value, right, by this entire bracket over here, right, all of this, right. So when you plug all of that into your calculator, right, you get that Jane's increased monthly installment is now 8,089 Rand and 20 cents. Okay. Right, so that's question 6.2, right, from May, June 2019. Right. So now let's look at a similar question to this, right? The one from the Eastern Cape province, right? And that was September 2019. All right. So if we read this one, okay, it says that a bank granted Nathan, right, a loan of 1.2 million, okay, to buy a house, right? So Nathan is doing the same thing as Jane. He also has a loan of that amount, okay. He agreed to repay the loan over a period of 15 years, right, at an interest rate of 11.5% compounded monthly, right. So he made his first payment at the end of the first month after the loan was granted. Very good. Okay. So 7.2.1, right, we need to calculate Nathan's monthly installment. All right. So that's obviously just going to be straight into the present value formula, right? And if we just think about let's write it over here. Okay, if we just think about the key information that we've received from this question is that we know that his present value, right, is 1,200,000, right? His X value is what we have to calculate, right? His interest rate is 0.115 compounded monthly, okay? And his N right now is going to be the 15 years times 12, okay? Which is going to be 180, right, payments which are required to settle this loan. Okay. So then after that, okay, question 7.2.2, again we see that due to some unforeseen circumstances, right, Nathan couldn't pay his 76th, 77th, 78th, 79th, and 80th installments, right. He resumed his payments at the end of the 81st month, right. Section A, right, or sub-question A, we now need to calculate the outstanding balance at the end of the 80th month. Okay, and then B says if Nathan continues paying the same monthly installment, right? So when we compare this to Jane's situation, right, Jane decided to pay an increased monthly installment, right, in order to still cover the loan in the agreed period, right, of 20 years, right? But now Nathan is doing sort of like the opposite, right? Nathan still wants to pay whatever his monthly installment was, okay? So his monthly installment is staying the same, okay? And now we need to find out how many months, okay, will it take for him to pay the balance which is outstanding, okay, which is the value that we're going to calculate here in A, right? All right, so now if we just quickly look at Nathan's situation in terms of the number line, right, we have over here that at T0, right, that's where he actually took out the loan, right, that was granted to him. At the end of the first month, right, he makes his first repayment, right, which is something we need to calculate here in 7.2.1, right. We need to calculate what was that amount that he was paying, okay, that X amount, right, and he does so, right, for a certain amount of time, right, and then something happens after he pays his 75th payment, okay, he misses the payment at the end of the 76th month, and also here at 77, 78, and 79. Okay, but now also this 80th month, if you look over here, he also missed that payment as well. Okay, so we can put a box on top there as well. Right, so he also missed that 80th month. Okay, so he's basically going to have interest being charged, right, on the balance of, yeah, okay. So we are not over here, right? The difference is that we're not going to be stating what is his balance of his loan immediately after making the 75th payment, right? But rather we're going to be saying what is the outstanding balance in total, right? Where we have the balance of the loan here plus all this interest that it's going to be charged. Okay. So now in Nathan's case, what he wants to do is that when he starts resuming his payments, okay, he doesn't want a different monthly installment. He still wants to carry on paying these X amounts, right? And now for question 7.2.2b, we need to calculate how many of these X amounts does he need to make, right, in order to cover that outstanding balance that he has. Okay, so we'll just leave our number line incomplete because we don't know for how long is he going to have to carry on doing this in order to settle his loan. Okay, so we can now actually get started for 7.2.1, right? In order for us to calculate his monthly installment, we have to consider the number of payments that were originally required, right, if he was going to be paying this loan off in 15 years. Okay, so plugging all of the values into the formula and also into the calculator, right, we're now going to be able to calculate what was Nathan's monthly installment. Okay, and that works out to be 14,018 Rand, okay, and 28 cents. Right. Remember that we are going to need this value, so it's a good idea to just store it. Okay, I'm just going to store it in A, right, and it's there. Okay. Okay, so we're just going to make a note of that monthly installment on the screen as well. Okay, so now to carry on with the rest of this question, right, we now need to realize that what we first have to do is we need to find out what was Nathan owing the bank, right, immediately after he made this payment right over here, okay, at the end of the 75th month. Okay, so similar to Jane's situation. Okay, so once we have the balance of his loan over here, right, then we know that we need to charge him some interest, and that total outstanding balance, okay, is what he now needs to settle. Okay, and he still wants to settle that using this monthly installment of 14,018 Rand and 28 cents. Okay, so then after that we need to calculate, well, how many of these monthly installments is he still going to have to make, right, in order to be able to settle that total outstanding balance. Okay, so in order to calculate the balance on Nathan's loan immediately after his 75th repayment, right, we just plug in his monthly installments into the present value formula together with his interest rate, and now we just need to worry about this value of N. Okay, remember that when we are looking for the balance on the loan, this N is basically talking about the number of payments which are remaining. Okay, so he had to finish this, okay, in 180 payments, right? He managed to pay 75 of them, right? So he still had a remaining 105 payments, right? So that's going to go in there. Let's just make it a little bit more clear. Okay, so he still had 105 payments to go. So when we plug all of that into the calculator, we get that the balance on his loan, right, is this amount over here. We're going to need this amount, so we'll just store it. I'll store it in B. So now remember what we need to do with this balance, right? In order to now evaluate this total outstanding balance, right, we need to charge this amount a certain number of months of interest, okay, and we'll get to that now. So basically what happens is that when Nathan actually starts making repayments again at the end of the 81st month, right, he finds that this amount that he's repaying now, which is this outstanding balance, okay, actually has together with it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months of interest. Okay, so we can say over here, therefore plus 5 months interest. Okay, so after that, right, we take this balance, right, on the loan. Okay, so it's that amount. You remember that we take that into the compound interest formula. Okay, so now to actually answer this question, right, the total outstanding balance at the end of the 80th month is this value over here. Okay, so basically to summarize this, we say that it's the balance on the loan immediately after you've made your last payment. Okay, and then plus any interest, okay, that was charged for the period of time, right, where you were not making any payments, or what we call your missed payments. Okay, so for question 7.2.2a, right, Nathan's outstanding balance, which is now the amount that he's going to try and settle, is 970,637 rand and 74 cents. Okay. So if we just quickly go back to Jane's situation, right, and we just compare what happened over here, right? So Jane also missed some payments, okay, and then what she decided to do is that once she actually started repaying again, right, she decided to pay an increased monthly installment, okay. So now in Nathan's case, okay, if we go back to Nathan's case, this is his outstanding balance, or you can also say this is his new loan amount, okay. What he wants to do is he wants to cover this outstanding balance using the same monthly installments, which is this amount right over here. Okay, so we're now going to take that information into 7.2.2b, okay, and now we need to calculate how many months is it going to take him, right, to actually cover this outstanding balance. Okay, so basically what I was saying is that this amount, right, the outstanding balance, we're going to multiply it with the interest rate. Okay, so you've now done that step. You need to divide it by the monthly installment. Remember, for us that is an A, so we're dividing it by, we call A. We get an answer, right? Then we need to subtract 1 from that answer. Okay, then we end up with this negative, which we are basically dividing with this negative in front of this bracket. So you're going to divide this by a -1, okay, and you get this value over here. Okay, so now we are going to store this value in the calculator as well. So I'll go Shift Store C. Okay, so I'll just round it off for now. I'll write it as 0.336. Okay, so this is 0.336 with dots like that. Okay, so then from there, therefore -n, I'm going to use the method of changing into log form. Okay, so we're going to get that -n is equals to, let's grab the calculator again. So in the calculator, we pick that log function, we put in our base, 1 plus 0.115 divided by 12. And we put in that answer that we got, which we stored in C. Okay, so negative n works out to be negative 114.2130681. Okay, so basically he needs to make 114 payments, right, in order to settle this loan. But then because of these decimal places over here, he still needs to make 1 month extra payment. Okay, so then we can conclude this by simply saying that therefore it's going to take Nathan, right, 115 months to pay off this outstanding balance, right? And we're talking about this outstanding balance right over here. Okay, so yeah, that is basically the procedure of working with annuities that have missed payments, right? You need to always locate the area or the point where the person made their last payment, okay? And then you need to calculate the balance on the loan at that point, okay? After that, that balance, right, needs to be charged interest, okay, for the missed months. Okay, then after that you can see the subtle differences that happened between these two questions. With Nathan's case, right, we were asked to calculate how long is it going to take him, right, to pay off the loan or to pay off the outstanding balance, okay, if he still wants to keep his monthly installments constant, right, he still wants to pay exactly what he was paying before, okay. Contrast that with Jane's case where Jane wanted to keep to the time period, right? She wanted to keep the time period constant, right? She said, no, I still want to finish this within 20 years, okay? So with Jane's case, what we were asked to calculate is that, well, in that case, if you still want to pay off this loan in the same amount of time, you have to pay a larger amount of monthly installments, okay, an increased monthly installment. So in Jane's case, we were asked to calculate what is that increased monthly installment. Okay, so yeah, that was basically the comparison between these two questions, right? And then that's it for today's video, matriculants. I hope you learned something, and I will see you guys next time.